welcome to Dental All Stars. And I am Alex Nottingham, founder and CEO of Ulster Dental Academy. And with me is Wade Sellers. He's a filmmaker and owner of Coal Powered Filmworks. And our topic today is the perfect interview. Please welcome Wade.
Hey, Alex, how are you?
I'm doing great. And I'm so happy to have you. Wade, wow. So I know you for many years.
Yes.
You come visit the mastermind group that I'm a part of with Marty Fort and Ken Hardison for many years. And I've done episodes about the power of the mastermind. We have our own mastermind at Ulster Dental Academy for dentists that my mastermind have been telling me I should do for a long time. And just the power of that. And it was a pleasure meeting you there, learning about what you do. You're so multi-talented as a filmmaker, as a business owner. And I had the great pleasure of visiting Marty's event. I was his keynote speaker. Was it last year? This year? This year.
In April,
Early this
April
year.
of this year.
I'm like, oh my goodness. And it was so impressive seeing what you did running the whole operation for their audio video and the result. And I said, I had to have you come to do our Practice Growth Summit. You did it and it was amazing. We have a wonderful replay because of it. We're going to have you again at our next Practice Growth Summit. And we'll talk about that in the interview a little bit about kind of the nature of what's behind the curtain of what you're doing and the effect of getting the power of video, the interview, the information, and so on. And so we'll kind of unpack that. But I want to give people a little background about how I know you, and I'm just so happy to be working with you and continue to work with you. So I kind of, mentioned you're a filmmaker, your background, also a musician. Anything else we should know before we kind of get into the content?
That describes all of it. The other option was managing a restaurant somewhere. That was my backup plan after college. But it was all filmmaking, and really from the time I was in the film program at the University of South Carolina, it's really all I've ever done.
And so let's kind of go into some of the topics here because we prepared for the listeners. And our audience are entrepreneurs and dentists, and some dentists are entrepreneurs, which we hope they are. That's the whole point of it. And our philosophy is to take the best in business, right? So you have a lot of experience, and you do have experience with dentists as well, but you do a lot with music studios and across the board. And a great business is a great business. And we here at All Star want to fund the fundamentals of all of that. So let's talk in terms of this perfect interview concept. Tell me about a story. What makes a good story? And by the way, I'm really into now with Shelly, our integrator at All Star, this idea of story brand. Have you heard of that before? Story brand?
Yes.
Okay. And maybe that goes into this whole idea of a story. So let's start with that concept. What makes a good story?
It really is fundamentally like we were taught if you ever took a composition 101 class, in high school or college. I mean, every good story has a beginning, middle, and an end, and there's conflict, right? And how we define that conflict to our own personal experience is something, we can think about ourselves. I mean, a good example of that is we raised X amount of dollars, saved X amount of dollars to start a business. And then suddenly we're hit with massive debt or a massive, monetary obligation that takes a large chunk of that away. How do we rebuild that, right? I mean, these are kind of fundamental stories that whenever I've worked with entrepreneurs or whether it's in our documentaries over the years, these are the elements that really take those personal stories to the next level.
Right. And just to kind of give like a framework here is that the end result is a video, a testimonial that we could use, right, for our company. And then we're kind of like deciding what how do we set it up strategically? Because I think one of the things when it comes to any business is we say, I need this. I need videos. I need videos on my website. I need testimonials.
Mhm.
And I'll just put them, or I'll, grab them with my phone. And we've done that for a while. And then we work with you and we saw, whoa, there's a whole new level with respect to that. So I think that's important to keep in mind. So I'll get to kind of the comparison at the end. But okay, so we talked about a good story, beginning, middle, and end. We want to make the hero of the story, or the hero of the journey, if for a dentist, it's going to be the client, the patient, right? And depending on your business, you want to make the hero, and you want to be able to set up what happened, what was the problem, and how do we solve it. And there was an interesting thing you said as well about something when you're at events or you're capturing data that you just need that one moment. What was that quote you said once?
Oh, I can't remember.
Okay,
But
so
I do
build
believe,
on what I'm saying.
I mean, I believe we describe it any number of ways, but basically it's capturing the moment that the results that individual are experiencing in front of you, that moment that they found that started everything, really.
Right.
So in this case, when we're talking about interviews, the basic idea of talking with a client, and they can set up their story, and it could be, if it's a chipped tooth or something like that, I mean, and how they got positive results, you can get into that and those details. But really, where we like to travel, so to speak, whenever we're talking with somebody in an interview situation, is to kind of get more specific and more detailed into who they are. A lot of times where this can become difficult is, it takes a little bit longer to talk with that person to get those details, but which in the end results in a little more editing to put that piece together. But we find it's a much stronger story, much more relatable to the audience that individual is trying to reach, and really helps, turn around things in a much more positive way, whether it's sales or views, etc.
Right. So we talked about the elements of a good story. What are the elements of a good interview or perfect interview?
Well, the first thing I always tell people, and every few months I try doing the math on how many interviews I've actually conducted in my life, and I know it's well over 1,000 now. And there are a few reasons for that, but what I've learned is the first thing you want to establish, no matter who you're talking to, is trust. Whatever that may be, you have to remember that even if it's a coworker or a professional, that's one of the most self-aware things you can do outside of public speaking is sit or stand in front of a camera. And that really, because suddenly the whole room's focused on that person, and there's stress involved with that, any number of things. So if you're the one doing the interviewing, getting the trust of the person sitting in that chair across from you is critical. But from there, whenever you're, either you've done your research beforehand or you're getting to know the person in front of you on the spot, the elements of that story are really, you can create a linear narrative in your head that's common among everybody. Where were you born? What did you like to do as a, kid? And these are generic examples. Kind of the generic story that all of us may have. In there, what you look for are little nuggets of detail that they give you that you can expound upon. That's where the conflict comes in, I think, a lot of times. And usually it's the conflict that gives you details of a person's life that really can help their story relatable to everybody else. Plus, it's a good dramatic tool to use to keep people engaged in whatever you're presenting to them.
As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, I'm going to change the title of the podcast on the fly, even though I started out with interview. I like the word testimonial better.
Mhm.
Testimony, right? I mean, because interview, we have a hiring service, so we do interviews. That might be confusing, but I want to move to this idea of testimonial. Same thing, but the idea that you want to get and not contrived. I think a lot of things that you do, which is great, is you're capturing. It's like almost like filming wildlife. You want to see them in reality, not in a cage situation. Just like, give me a testimony, right? Write it down. And you can tell it's staged or
Right.
it's overly edited. What you like to do is you're like, okay, I want to get real life testimony. I want something that has the juice. Yes, the beginning, middle, and end. And what you may have to do as the editing process, which I've seen you do, and it's amazing, just as impressive as your filmmaking is the editing, is now telling the story with that. But we have to get enough data to be able to create it. And you have to have the eye because there is a science, but there's also an artistic nature of feel when it comes to that. You have to feel it, have that empathy to be able to create it and put it out there. And I think, okay, so we talked about some of the elements, and then we have to just look at like the effect of a great testimonial, of a great result that you're getting. So we'll use dentists, of course, as our analogy, as our target market. And when dentists have on their website, they want to convey testimony from themselves while they do what they do, the empathy that they have, the and what they bring to the table, but also more importantly is the patients, what they experience. And like you mentioned, it's not just the crown, it's how you made them feel. See, that's the thing
Right.
behind when I work with a lot of our dentists and we do our mastermind, I say no DDS. We're not talking dull dental stuff. You can do that on the side because when
That's
it
right.
comes down to it, and you strip, because I want them to strip away all of that. Because I'm a lawyer, MBA, I have to strip all that away too. We're not going to get into legal talk. We're going to get into human nature, and we find we're all the same. The dentist looking for practice management training and hiring services, they come to us, right? The patient that's looking for um, support and help for a dentist, yes, it's the tool as the veneer or the implant, but we're helping make a difference in their life. So same thing with you, Wade. You're working for us. Yes, the result is the great production you produce, but it's how you make us feel. It's what you convey. That's the most important job that we're looking to create here, right?
That's correct. So an argument sometimes can be made that, if you have X number of dental practices that someone is choosing, really the X factors may be where they feel most at home. Um,
Mm-hmm.
with a testimonial, how we approach it, and we have to keep in mind that what we're doing isn't news, right? I mean, when you talk to somebody and you interview them, it's not for the news. There is license to manipulate in a truthful way whatever somebody said and convey really what you, if you own a dental practice or any but a business where you're using a testimonial, convey the message that you're trying to get across to draw new clients, new partners, whatever it may be. That's how we approach every interview we do, whether it's a testimonial or an interview for one of our series, etc. I personally just like talking to people and I like interviewing people. I like getting to know them. And it's a huge bit of advice that I always give to people that ask me questions about, better ways to approach interviews or testimonials or anything for business is typically, if you're doing it, first of all, internally, utilize somebody that likes talking to people,
That's
not
a good
just
point.
somebody that, I mean, learning the skills of being an interviewer, there are some that over time you'll get better at. How to guide your interviewee when they're giving you a testimonial, you can kind of take them down this path and get what you need out of them. But at the heart of it, you have to like talking to them because they're going to read that from you as a positive or a negative. And the safer you make those individuals feel, whether it's in the setting of an office or wherever we may conduct an interview for one of our broadcast documentaries, the safer they feel, the more they're going to open up to you. And quite honestly, if you make them feel, whether it's asking them if they've been able to get away for the summer with their kids, if you know they have kids, or if they're, just have a partner that it's just the two of them. How are the dogs doing? If you know they have dogs, something that really just disarms them as soon as possible can get maximum results right away. And the maximum results are the answers to the questions that they give you may be the same, whether you've done this or not, make them feel safe or not. The way they give you that answer is infinitely recognizable by somebody on the other side of a computer or a phone or whatever as something more relatable. It's something really to see whenever you kind of see how people feel when they feel safe in talking to somebody. And a lot of times when they're talking about, in this case, an experience at a dentist's office, you want them to be really open, because something as simple, and from personal experience, I know, as a cracked tooth and not being able to drink a mildly warm glass of water, and having somebody basically save your day because they slid you right in, when they can communicate that in a way that anybody watching can relate to, it really makes a huge difference, as opposed to just answering the question.
That's a great point. As you're saying that, I'm thinking about my experience with you at the event, is just feeling so at peace that you held that space for everybody, versus me, the CEO of the company, saying, "Give me a testimonial. Say something." It's like, whoa, It was funny. We were interviewing the coaches, and they had to kick me out of the room because I was making them nervous. So, and that goes to the other point, which is do I do this myself and what's involved, or do I work with a professional, let's say like yourself, to put together something like this? So walk me through the two. If I were to want to do it myself, what would I do? How could I capture it? What would make sense? And then if I would want to work with somebody else, or what would be something to consider if I were hiring somebody, kind of walk me through, because everybody's at a different space with respect to it. I mean, I've certainly tried doing it myself. I did an okay result. Then I saw working with you, and I'm like, oh gosh, I should have been doing this 10 years ago. It's phenomenal. But it's good that we have the knowledge behind it. And I just love whenever I find something wonderful that's working for me, I want to share with everybody in our tribe, if you will, that are following us, that they have access to the best of the best. So walk me through those two options.
So I'm going to kind of work backwards in a sense. If you are, whatever you define your, I guess, the way that you're going to get this content out there, if it's on television or streaming, let's just say, kind of at a higher level than just something, a quick TikTok clip.
Sure.
I would say hire a professional. Hire somebody who knows just outside of the basics of conducting an interview and lighting and all the technical aspects.
And your website too, like you would want a professional for that.
Correct. Because there's, I guess, that gap in the middle that when it leaves your computer and goes to the television station, or it leaves your computer and goes to somebody else's website, there's just language there that, yes, you can learn yourself if you have that time, but why would you want to spend the time going through that, especially if you're in a business? Hire a professional. The other kind of sub point of that is that find somebody you like working with. I mean, quite honestly, this is an obvious answer to things, but meet with these people before, if there's 3 companies you're thinking of working with, sit down, have lunch with all of them. Just enjoy that process, because in my experience, our clients, we tend to have a really good relationship with all of our clients. I think that bears fruitful, creative product and content at the end of the road for everything we do because it opens up communication, etc. And they, of course, they hire us, they retain us, but it is a relationship. I think a lot of times that if you own the business and you're looking for someone to produce content for you, you really have to have that open dialogue. I would always suggest that if you ever get a feeling like somebody at a production company is talking down to you or, being a little too aggressive with, this is, my world, let me worry about this and you do what you do, I would say never work with that person. It's like everything else. I mean, and it's not transactional either. Like, I'm paying you, you should tell me and keep me involved in the process. It really is just based on that relationship. All right. If you want to do it yourself, I would say, first of all, just educate yourself on, if you haven't already, just kind of the basics. There are plenty of YouTube channels. There are plenty of materials out there on the internet that you can really get a good idea of how to shoot video on your phone by yourself. Have a good phone, have a good microphone, have a little, at the minimum, a light that you can either mount on your phone or a ring light, something like that. But then you get into the idea of, how do I talk to, people and really get what I need out of them? And this is typically why I say hire a professional, or at least somebody who has done this before. If you're getting your feet wet into this area and you eventually want to do it yourself, just maybe there's monetary ceilings that you have to deal with or other issues that come into play, find somebody who, a local newscaster, or maybe somebody that used to work for the news and they're public relations director for a state agency, now. I mean, a lot of times people, even if you give them a little stipend or honorarium, just come in and help you. It's critical to really kind of understand those basics. I'm happy to talk about those too. I mean, it's, the simplicity of how to answer a question, how to frame the video on the screen, what type of video, horizontal, vertical, which one should you
There's
use
a
at a
lot,
given
yeah.
moment? Yeah, I mean, but those things you
I,
figure out over time, right?
well,
I mean,
I think that when it comes to, I like where you explain like where's appropriate, where's not. I mean, if money is an issue, so step one, if you're a dentist, and there are some dentists that are pretty techy. I mean, I'm very technology savvy as CEO of All Star, but it's not always the best use of my time, so that's to be outsourced. But I think if you happen to be the rare person that's just phenomenal on videography, you know how to edit videos and get high quality audio, that's the technical side and the editing. And then maybe you have a background in theater or whatever. But then it's just learning, like you said before, about crafting a good story and so on. And there's probably a few out there. But for most people, they don't have the technical or background. Okay.
right.
Now, I like what you said, like quick TikTok or videos or shorts for YouTube or Instagram. Those are wonderful to do on your own. You don't want them heavily edited. They want to look kind of amateurish and fun. That's the whole point of
Yeah.
it. The ones that are too production heavy don't perform as well. That's a good place to do that. And then there might be some short testimonial clips that you can get that are fun. But for something professional like your website, because dentists are professionals. Now it's different if you're like, depends on your industry. If you're a dance club or something, you can be more fun and silly. But you're going to a dentist to solve a problem, to save your life, to make a difference. It's a professional service. And so you want to be professional. And if you're not being professional, just get written testimonials. But if you're going to do it right, so the cheapest way is, I would say, is you can find an intern somewhere or a college kid that can do something and set it up. And I think that, but for most dentists, and we talk about ROI, return on investment. I mean, dentists running a dental practice are producing thousands of dollars an hour. So their time is very valuable. And every patient is worth tens of thousands of dollars over the lifetime of the patient. And I think most importantly is that, and we're not going to have time to go through this, but spending time to consider what Wade said about the story of who you are, what you're looking to create in a testimonial. You want to have that ahead of time. But it's also great to have a professional like Wade and others that know what they're doing. Now, here's an important distinction. There's a distinction between, and I'm a little techie, so I know this stuff, between a videographer and like a producer or documentarian filmmaker like yourself. That one is I'm just capturing, I'm editing, but you know exactly, and I've seen it in your edits, you know what you're looking for. And so you know how to interview, you know what you're looking for, create the result. So I think really listening to this podcast and this discussion is making sure that you're armed to interview people and know what to ask. It's not just a technical output, but like you said, do you know how to interview them? What are you going to say? How are you going to make them comfortable? What's your background? Show me some of your examples of what you created. So I want to make sure I don't forget this, but if you go to allstardentalacademy.com or allstardentalevents.com and make sure you click on events, and I believe right now we have the Practice Growth Summit. That's our main event. It's there. Click on that, and you'll see one of Wade's videos. And I'll double check. Let me make sure that one's up there. As I'm talking, I'm looking now, and I'm going to say make sure it's up because I don't want to say it, and then people are like, that's not Wade's video. Let's see. I'm scrolling down. Yes, the first video is Wade's video. So, and we'll make sure, and some of the testimonials there are Wade's video. So any of the high quality ones are Wade's. But what's good about that is you can see an example of what a quality testimonial looks like, a quality edited program looks like. And so I would use that as kind of an anchor to say kind of what you're looking to create. So I think that's very important just to put it out there that you have different levels, right, to go there. But I would say most dentists do it right. You want to convey, and you only have to do it once or twice in your career, is create the story, get some testimonials with blah 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 blah. So Wade, tell me, what would it look like if I was a dentist and I wanted to work with someone like you? How would that work? Would I have to have patients come to my practice? Like, how would I capture all this information to be able to do the testimonials and stuff?
The first thing to say is really, you don't have to find yourself if you already have a relationship with an ad agency or something like that, fine. And
Sure.
they typically have people they work with. This is not something you really have to find an ad agency to help you with. If this is the first time you're looking for a production company to work with, like I said, ask for people's, it's called a production reel. So you typically it's on the landing page of a lot of people's websites. If you go to our website, there's kind of a web hero. It has some cool shots that we've gotten over the years of different projects. But once you hire that company, essentially for testimonials, we try to make it, or any kind of production, as helpful to the budget of the, in this case, practice, because we have done some dental practice testimonials, as helpful to them as possible. You want everything to happen in one day. It can, whether it's in their office or not in their office, sometimes you don't have a choice, or it can be an outside location based on, what you're going to be talking about. I typically, this is my own personal opinion, you want it to be in an environment that is, that has as little distraction as possible, both for the viewer in the end, but also the people that are going to be sitting in the chair doing that interview. And then really it's just, at that point, you just kind of schedule the day. You have people step in. You have a set number of questions. Typically, the individuals that are going to be sitting in the chair across from you, or sitting across from the interviewer, they've already been emailed the questions, so they know basically what they're going to be talking about. They also know why they're there. And in this case, if it's a dentist, he's already either spoken with that person, and they kind of have an idea of where it's going to be used and why they're sitting in the chair in the first place. Typically, in everybody we've ever worked with that uses testimonials for the businesses, the people that they ask they're rock stars, basically. They're true believers.
Of
You
course.
definitely want people, you don't want a wild card
Well, you
sitting
could
in
have
the
whatever
chair.
you want because you'll edit it out. So you'll get the best out of it that's
It's
there, no?
true, but one thing that we've run into, you want people that you know, that you have a relationship with. Um, not to say it has to go back years and years, but you do run into, even though it's rare, situations where you use somebody for a testimonial, and for some reason they just stop going to you, or
Hmm.
they have a history that maybe you don't know about. I mean, you not to say you have to have a personal relationship with everybody that sits
You
down.
gotta vet
You got to vet them
these
though.
people pretty well. So let me just say this because you're so sweet, you're so generous. And as you know, I get right to it, right? So I want to put your website up there. Give me your website and I'll put it. It's Cole. What is your website exactly?
Coalpoweredfilmworks.com.
Coal
COALPOWERD.
coalpoweredfilmworks.com. Coalpoweredfilmworks.com. And we'll put it in the show notes as well. But check
Yeah,
out Wade's work. Check out All Star Dental Academy events, the Practice Growth Summit. You can see some of his work. And Wade's amazing. I mean, look, the premise of
thanks.
this, everyone, is we gave you the testimonial framework is what you need. We gave you different options of what has to go along. And I'm just going to summarize here that for most of you listening, you're going to get a professional. Either your marketing agency will work with it. We're big fans of Omni Premier Marketing. I believe in many of their packages, they do videography and some great work. And
I agree.
Wade is, yeah, and Wade is an independent filmmaker and does this and does amazing. He works with me. He's going to be at our mastermind event. And by the way, for mastermind members that are listening, and I'll remind them and tell them to watch this podcast. But you're going to be there, and we're going to do a little testimonial. We'll have to I need instructions, Wade, to give them to mastermind to prepare. But we're going to do a little clips there for them that they'll be able to take home for their practice. But that's like a little sliver of what you do. You do entire days. But I would implore everybody, reach out to Wade. This is just, now I'm going to talk about your buddy Alex, kind of recommending, because I don't get anything from this, but I'm just such a big fan of Wade. This is what happens when people are fans of something they have, they want to share it. And I just felt in such great hands working with Wade and running our event, the audio video. You dentists probably aren't doing many. However, those that are running study clubs and want them recorded, Wade is amazing for that. So definitely those, we have friends at the AACD, AGD, Dawson, and so on. They do a lot of events. Wade's a great one to help produce those study clubs. Wonderful. But for the independent practice, I would reach out to Wade, talk to him, get some advice, interview him, right? And kind of see what goes on. But I can tell you this, he's amazing, super affordable. I would put my stamp on everybody to use Wade as long as it doesn't interfere with my time when I have Wade. That's the only deal, everybody listening. As long as I get preferred time with Wade to do my videos, you can utilize them other times. I'm a big fan of Wade. Reach out, talk to him. He's a sweetheart. And Wade, I'm so happy to have you in the program. We'll put the links in the show notes and we'll communicate, share on social media. And I'm going to see you in a few months anyway. So thank you,
That's
Wade,
right.
for being on the program.
Of course, we travel the country doing what we do, and happy to answer any questions anybody may have, and look forward to, what the future lies ahead. But just want to thank you, Alex, for asking me to be on the pod, and look forward to seeing you in a few months.
My pleasure. And you're a musician, so one time we'll have to have you play at one of the events, right? That's something we're working on.
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. Well, thank you.
I'd love to.
Thank you, Wade, for joining us as always. Wade Sellers, Coal Powered Filmworks. And remember to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all the social media channels. Get the episodes as they are released, and make sure you share with your friends of all this great stuff that we're learning. And until next time, go out there and be an all-star.